Welcome. This is a quiet historical story, told slowly. There's nothing you need to imagine, remember, or follow closely. You can simply listen or let the words drift past as you rest. The story begins in its own time, and it will continue whether you stay awake or not. The door closes behind her with a sound that is barely there. A soft meeting of wood and frame, the latch settling into place with a whisper of brass on brass. The drawing room is hers now. The guests have gone. The family has retired. The house has exhaled its public breath and drawn inward, and she stands just inside the threshold, hands folded at her waist, letting her eyes adjust to the dimness, letting the room reveal itself in the low glow of the dying fire. The air holds everything. She breathes it in slowly, through her nose, tasting it, reading it. There is smoke, coal smoke from the fire, faint but present, a gray heaviness that hangs near the ceiling and drifts in lazy currents when she moves her head. Beneath that, candle wax, beeswax expensive, the good kind used only when there are visitors. And the scent is sweet and faintly honeyed. She can smell tobacco too, pipe tobacco, rich and earthy, clinging to the upholstery of the chair nearest the hearth where the master sat after dinner. The scent woven into the velvet like a stain that cannot be seen but only known. There's something else, a dampness, not strong but there, hanging at the edges of the room near the tall windows that face the garden. The night outside is wet. It has been raining for hours, a steady autumn rain that taps against the glass and seeps into the old frames, into the gaps where wood has swelled and shrunk and swelled again over decades. The curtains, heavy damask in deep crimson, lined with cotton sateen, smell faintly of moisture, of fabric that has absorbed the breath of rain and held it close. She will need to check them later, to see if the dampness has spread, if the hems will need airing before mildew takes hold. She does not move yet. Her body is still, hands still folded, shoulders carrying the weight of the uniform she wears. Black wool, starched white apron, the small cap pinned to her hair with pins that press gently against her scalp. She can feel the tightness of the fabric across her back, the way it holds her upright, holds her contained, holds her ready. This is what she wears when the house requires her to be invisible and essential at once. This is what she wears when the room must be returned to perfection before morning. The fire in the grate burns low, the coals glowing deep orange beneath a layer of white ash, pulsing gently as air moves through them. The light it casts is soft and uneven, throwing shadows that shift and waver across the walls, across the furniture, across the pale expanse of the Persian rug that covers the center of the floor. The rug is old, valuable, its colors muted to soft rose and faded blue and ivory. The pattern so intricate that she has spent hours simply looking at it, tracing the vines and flowers and geometric shapes with her eyes during the rare moments when the room is empty and hers to observe. Her gaze moves slowly now, methodically, taking inventory. This is her skill, her training, to see what others do not see, to know what is out of place before her hands ever reach to correct it. The eye is faster than the hand and more certain. The chairs are not where they should be. Two of them have been pulled closer to the fire, angled toward each other in a way that suggests conversation, intimacy, the leaning in of voices speaking low. The indentations in the cushions are still visible, slight hollows where bodies pressed down and weight settled and warmth was exchanged. One chair, the one that smells of tobacco, has a small side table drawn up beside it, and on that table there is a glass, half empty, the amber liquid inside catching the firelight and holding it like a jewel. Whiskey. The scent of it is faint from where she stands, but she knows it is there, knows the peaty undertone that marks it as expensive, as something poured only for guests of standing. The mantelpiece is crowded, too crowded. There are calling cards scattered across the marble surface, small rectangles of cream-colored cardstock with names engraved in elegant script, left behind by visitors who came for tea and stayed for sherry and conversation. She counts them without moving closer. 7, 8, perhaps 9 cards, some propped against the tall Chinese vases that flank the mantel clock, some lying flat, overlapping. Beside the cards, a pair of gloves. Ladies' gloves, pale gray kid leather, soft and expensive, folded neatly but left behind nonetheless. Someone will ask for them tomorrow. Someone will send a note, apologetic, requesting their return. The clock itself is ticking. She can hear it now, a soft, measured sound, steady and relentless, marking time in the silence. It is a French clock, gilded bronze with a face of white enamel and hands of blued steel, and it sits precisely in the center of the mantelpiece as it always does. The sound it makes is not loud, but it fills the room in the way that only repetitive sounds can, becoming part of the air, part of the breathing of the house. Beyond the drawing room, deeper in the house, there are other sounds. The faint creak of floorboards overhead, someone walking in the upper hall, footsteps slow and deliberate. A servant, perhaps, or one of the family preparing for bed. The sound fades, moves away, disappears into the thickness of walls and ceilings. Somewhere far off, in the direction of the kitchens, there is the muffled clank of metal on metal, a pot being set on a range, a lid being replaced. The scullery maid finishing the last of the washing up. The sound is so distant it is almost imagined, almost a memory rather than a present thing. Closer, just beyond the drawing-room door, the long case clock in the entrance hall chimes the quarter hour. The sound is deep and resonant, a single clear tone that travels through wood and plaster and carpet. She counts the reverberations as they fade, feeling them as much as hearing them. A vibration that seems to pass through the floor beneath her feet, through the soles of her shoes, into her bones. The room waits. The fire burns low. The air holds its scents and its dampness and its evidence of the evening that has passed. She stands in the stillness, hands folded, shoulders straight, eyes moving slowly across surfaces and shadows, reading the room, knowing it, preparing to enter it fully when the moment comes. She moves forward now, slow steps that make almost no sound on the Persian rug, her shoes sinking slightly into the wool pile with each measured footfall. Her destination is the sideboard against the far wall, where she keeps the tools of her trade in a shallow drawer lined with green baize. The drawer slides open with a whisper of wood on wood, and her hand finds what it seeks without looking. The candle snuffer, its scissor handles cool and smooth beneath her fingers. The snuffer is old, older perhaps than the house itself, made of brass that has been polished so many times that the metal has taken on a soft, buttery glow in the firelight. The handles fit her hand perfectly, the finger loops worn to a gentle oval by decades of use. The cutting blades are small and sharp, designed to snip cleanly through charred wick without disturbing the flame, and the cone-shaped cap attached to one handle is meant for extinguishing, though she will not need that tonight. These candles will burn on, but they must burn cleanly, burn true. She crosses to the first candelabra, a three-armed piece of cut crystal that stands on the table nearest the window. The candles are white, made of beeswax, their flames steady and tall in the still air. But the wicks have burned unevenly. Two of them have developed long, curled tips that glow too bright, too hot, sending up thin trails of smoke that darken the air and leave black residue on the crystal arms above. She opens the snuffer, positioning the blades just below the flame, and closes them with a gentle, deliberate pressure. The wick separates with a tiny sound, a soft snip, barely audible, metal through carbon, and the charred end falls away, tumbling down through empty air to land in the small tin dish she has brought with her, held ready in her other hand. The sound of it landing is delicate, a whisper of ash meeting metal, and the flame above stutters for just a moment before settling into a new shape. Smaller now, more contained, the light more pure. She moves to the second wick and positions the blades, closes them. Snip. The charred fragment falls and joins its companion in the tin. The flame adjusts, finds its balance. The third wick is shorter, has burned more evenly, but still she examines it, tilting her head slightly to see the shape of it in the light, to judge whether it needs attention. It does not. She leaves it untouched and moves on. The second candelabra stands on the mantelpiece, a brass piece with 5 arms arranged in a gentle arc. All 5 candles burn, but 3 of them have developed the telltale curl of overlong wicks, and one has burned so hot that the wax around its base has melted into a small pool, uneven and rippled, threatening to drip if left unattended. She begins with the wicks, working from left to right, snipping each one in turn. Snip, the fall. Snip, again. Snip. The tin grows heavier in her hand, accumulating its small collection of carbon and ash, and she can smell the faint, acrid scent of burnt wick rising from it, mixing with the sweeter smell of the beeswax. The pooled wax requires different attention. She sets down the tin and reaches into her apron pocket, withdrawing a small knife with a bone handle and a narrow blade. The blade catches the firelight as she brings it to the candle, and she works carefully, scraping gently at the hardened rim of wax that has built up around the edge of the pool, shaving thin curls away to level the surface, to create an even burn. The wax comes away in pale, translucent ribbons that curl as they separate from the candle, and she gathers them in her palm, feeling their coolness, their slight tackiness. When the surface is level, when the pool is smooth and centered around the wick, she deposits the wax shavings into the tin with the charred wick ends. They will all be disposed of later, melted down and reformed or simply thrown away, depending on their quality. There are more candles. A pair of tall tapers in silver holders on either side of the fireplace. A cluster of votives on the writing desk near the door. She moves between them methodically, unhurried, giving each one the same careful attention. The rhythm becomes meditative, a repetition that requires no thought, only presence, only the steady application of trained hands to familiar work. Some of the candles have left smoke residue on their holders, faint black smudges on the silver, on the brass, on the cut crystal facets that catch and multiply the light. She sets down the snuffer and the tin, withdraws from her pocket a square of silk cloth, soft and pale gray, worn thin by use. The cloth whispers against her skin as she unfolds it, and she begins to wipe, pressing gently, feeling the residue lift and transfer to the fabric. The silver brightens beneath her touch. The brass glows warmer. The crystal facets regain their clarity. She works in small circles, turning the cloth often to find clean sections, breathing quietly as she concentrates on the small movements, the gentle friction of silk on metal, on glass. The fireplace candles require the most attention. The heat from the grate has caused the wax to soften unevenly, and she must scrape and level both of them, her knife moving in careful strokes, her eyes focused on the small adjustments, the tiny corrections that will allow them to burn straight through the night. The silver holders have tarnished slightly in the heat, and she polishes them until they reflect the firelight in clean, warm glows. When she finishes, when the last candle has been trimmed and the last holder wiped clean, she stands back slightly, the tin and cloth and snuffer held loosely in her hands, and surveys her work. The flames burn evenly now, each one steady and contained, casting light that is clear and unwavering. The room glows more purely, more gently, the shadows less restless, the air cleaner. The candles burn quietly, patient and tended. The windows must be closed now, sealed against the night and the damp air that presses against the glass. She crosses to the first of the 3 tall windows that line the outer wall, her footsteps soft on the rug, and stands before it for a moment, looking out into darkness. There's nothing to see, only the faint suggestion of rain on glass, tiny rivulets running down the panes, and beyond that, blackness, the garden invisible, the world reduced to water and night. She reaches for the shutters. They are folded back into their recesses on either side of the window frame, panels of dark wood fitted with iron hinges. Her hands find the edge of the left panel, fingers curling around the shaped wood, and she pulls it toward her, drawing it out of its recess and across the window. The hinges protest softly, not a squeak, but a low, breathing creak. Metal moving against metal, the sound of weight and age and use. The panel swings slowly, smoothly, the wood solid and heavy in her grip, and she guides it into place against the window frame, feeling the moment when it settles, when the edge meets the frame with a soft, definitive sound. The right panel follows. She grasps it, pulls, and the hinges creak again. The same low voice, and the panel crosses the window to meet its partner. They close together in the center with a gentle thump. Wood against wood, and the view of the night is gone completely, replaced by the blank, protective face of the shutters. But they must be secured. She reaches for the iron bar that hangs vertically in its brackets, a length of metal as thick as her thumb, cold to the touch. The bar is heavy, substantial, and she lifts it with both hands, feeling the weight of it, the resistance of the iron. The brackets are stiff. They always are at the start of the season when the shutters have been open for months and the mechanism has not been used. She pushes the bar upward, feeling it catch, feeling the friction of metal sliding through metal, and then it gives, releases, and she can lower it into place across the center of the closed shutters. The bar drops into its receiving slots with a solid clank, a sound that echoes slightly in the enclosed space, a sound of security, of closure. The window is sealed now, the shutters barred, the night held at bay. She moves to the curtains. They hang on either side of the shuttered window, heavy panels of crimson damask that reach from ceiling to floor, lined with pale sateen that gleams faintly in the candlelight. The fabric is thick, dense, woven to hold warmth in winter and keep light at bay in summer, and it smells faintly of dust and old dye and that lingering dampness she noticed when she first entered the room. Her hands gather the left curtain, pulling it toward the center, drawing it across the shuttered window. The curtain moves with resistance, the weight of the fabric, the friction of the rings sliding along the brass rod above. And she can hear the soft, continuous whisper of metal on metal as the rings travel, one after another. A sound like distant rain, like sand running through fingers. The fabric brushes against her apron, her sleeves, and she can feel its texture, the raised pattern of the damask, the smoothness of the lining beneath. The right curtain follows, drawn across to meet the left, and when they come together in the center, she stands close, reaching up to adjust them, to overlap them properly so no gap remains, no draft can enter. Her hands smooth the folds, running down the length of the fabric, pressing gently, encouraging the velvet to hang straight, to fall in even pleats that will not trap dust, will not hold moisture. The curtains sway slightly as she works, releasing a faint scent of fiber and age into the air. The second window, and then the third. The process repeats, unchanging. Shutters pulled from their recesses, hinges creaking their low song. Panels meeting in the center, wood striking wood. Iron bars lifted, pushed, lowered into place with that same solid clank. Curtains drawn, rings whispering along brass, fabric smoothing beneath her palms. With each window closed, the room grows quieter. The sound of rain fades, muffled first by the shutters, then by the heavy curtains, until it becomes almost imagined, a memory of sound rather than sound itself. The room draws inward, becomes smaller, more contained, the walls seeming closer now, the air more still. She returns to the sideboard and retrieves the crumb brush from its place in the drawer. A small brush with soft horsehair bristles and a wooden handle worn smooth. The rug must be cleared. The areas where guests have sat and where crumbs may have fallen, where ash from pipes or cigars might have drifted down unnoticed. She kneels beside the chair that smells of tobacco, feeling the slight give of the rug beneath her knees, and begins to brush. The bristles move in short, methodical strokes, sweeping across the wool pile, gathering invisible particles, coaxing them toward the dustpan she has placed at the edge. The sound is soft, rhythmic, bristle against wool, a gentle friction that makes almost no noise but can be felt in the wrist, in the hand. She works in sections, moving around the chair beneath the side table, clearing the space where feet rested, where a dropped napkin might have left traces. The second chair, the area before the fire. Each space is brushed clean, attended with the same careful strokes, the same quiet movements. The dustpan receives what little debris there is, a few grains of ash, a thread from someone's coat, particles too small to name. The room is enclosed now, insulated, protected. The candles burn on, steady and bright. The fire glows low in its grate. The writing desk stands in the corner near the third window, a delicate piece with slender legs and a tooled leather surface the color of forest moss. She approaches it slowly, her eyes already reading what has been left behind. Papers scattered. An inkwell open. The small ivory-handled pen resting at an angle across the blotter, its nib still darkened with ink that has not fully dried. She stands before the desk, hands hovering just above the surface, not touching yet, only observing. Someone has written letters here this evening. There are 3 sheets of writing paper, cream-colored and watermarked, arranged in a loose fan. 2 of them bear lines of script in dark blue-black ink, the handwriting elegant but hurried, slanting slightly to the right. The 3rd sheet is blank, waiting. Beside them, a folded newspaper, its edges crisp, unopened sections still holding their shape. The inkwell is porcelain, white with a thin line of gold around its rim, and the lid sits beside it on the leather surface, removed and forgotten. She can see the ink inside, dark and liquid, catching the candlelight in its small pool. If left open through the night, it will thicken, will begin to form a skin, will be harder to use tomorrow. Her fingers reach for the lid, lifting it carefully, feeling its lightness, its fragility. She lowers the lid onto the inkwell, aligning it carefully, feeling for the moment when porcelain meets porcelain, when the fit is true. There is a soft sound as it settles, a whisper of contact barely audible, and then it is sealed. The ink is protected, preserved, ready for when it will be needed again. The pen requires attention. She lifts it from the blotter, holding it lightly between thumb and forefinger, feeling the smoothness of the ivory handle, cool and substantial. The nib is steel, split down the center to hold ink, and there is still a trace of wetness there, a dark gleam in the tines. If left to dry in this state, the ink will harden, will clog the delicate split, making the pen difficult to use. From her apron pocket, she withdraws a small square of linen, soft and clean, and she brings it to the nib, touching it gently to the metal. The fabric absorbs the ink, a dark stain spreading slowly through the weave, and she wipes carefully, turning the pen, ensuring both sides of the nib are clean, that the split is clear. The linen whispers against the steel, a sound so small it is almost nothing, almost silence. When the nib is clean, when no trace of ink remains, she sets the pen in its stand, a small marble base with a groove carved to receive it, and folds the stained linen, tucking it back into her pocket to be laundered. The papers on the desk are not hers to read, but they are hers to order. She gathers them gently, squaring the edges, tapping them against the leather surface until they align. The sound is soft, rhythmic, paper against leather, a muffled percussion. When they are straight, she sets them beside the inkwell, away from the edge of the desk where they might be disturbed, where a sleeve might catch them in passing. The newspaper she leaves folded, but she straightens it, ensuring its edges are parallel to the desk's edge, that it sits neatly. Beside it, a pair of reading spectacles in a leather case left behind. She does not open the case, only moves it slightly, centering it on the blotter, giving it a place that seems intentional rather than forgotten. There is a small bronze figurine on the corner of the desk, a hunting dog frozen mid-stride, and she notices that it has been moved, pushed back from its usual position by someone reaching for paper or pen. She lifts it carefully, feeling the weight of the bronze, the coolness of the metal, and she returns it to its place. The spot where the leather beneath is slightly darker, worn by years of the figurine resting there. It settles with a soft sound, bronze on leather, and the desk looks more itself, more ordered. On the table beside the sofa, there's a book left open, face down, its spine bent. She crosses to it, lifts it gently, feels the resistance of the binding that does not want to close after being held open. She does not force it, only eases the covers together, letting the pages find their own arrangement, and then she sets the book upright, spine outward, where it can rest without strain. A shawl has slipped from the back of a chair, one corner trailing onto the floor. She retrieves it, the silk cool and slippery in her hands, and drapes it carefully over the chair back, smoothing it, arranging the fringe so it hangs evenly. The room holds these small adjustments, these gentle corrections. The objects rest in their proper places, protected, aligned. The fire has burned lower now, the flames reduced to small flickers that rise and fall among the coals, brief tongues of yellow and orange that appear and vanish like breathing. But the heat remains, radiating outward from the grate in steady waves, and she can feel it from several feet away, a presence in the air, a warmth that draws her closer. She kneels before the hearth, feeling the give of the rug beneath her knees, and the heat intensifies immediately, no longer distant but immediate, pressing against her face, her throat, the backs of her hands. It is almost too much, almost uncomfortable, but not quite. She holds herself steady, letting her body adjust, letting the warmth seep into her skin while her eyes examine the state of the fire. Ash has accumulated on the hearthstone, a fine gray powder that has drifted out from the grate when coals shifted, when someone earlier added wood or stirred the fire. The ash is soft, weightless, and when she breathes it stirs slightly, tiny particles lifting and resettling like dust in sunlight. She reaches for the small brass hearth brush that hangs from a hook on the side of the fireplace, its bristles stiff and slightly blackened from use. The brush moves across the stone in slow, deliberate strokes, gathering the ash, pushing it back toward the grate. The sound is a soft scraping, bristle on stone, and beneath that, the faint, dry whisper of ash being moved, particles tumbling over one another. She works methodically, sweeping from the outer edges inward, creating a small pile at the threshold of the grate, and then she uses the edge of the brush to guide the ash back into the fire, where it belongs, where it will be consumed or settle among the coals and become part of the bed of heat. Some of the ash is still warm. She can feel it as the bristles push through it, can sense the faint radiation of retained heat. The coals themselves are scattered unevenly across the grate, some piled in the center where they glow brightest, deep orange fading to white at their hearts, while others have rolled to the sides, isolated, their heat dissipating into the iron of the grate, rather than feeding back into the fire. She sets down the brush and reaches for the poker, a long iron rod with a hooked end, its handle wrapped in brass to protect the hand from heat conducted down the metal. The poker is warm even through the brass, and she grips it carefully, feeling the weight of the iron, the balance of it. She extends it into the grate, the tip disappearing into the glow of the coals, and she begins to redistribute them, pushing gently, coaxing them back toward the center. The poker meets resistance, the solidity of coal, the weight of pieces that have settled, and when she applies pressure, the coals shift with a soft, settling sound. One coal rolls free, and she follows it with the poker, guiding it back, nudging it into place. Another breaks apart under gentle pressure, fragmenting into smaller pieces that glow more brightly for a moment. She arranges them carefully, building a concentrated bed in the center of the grate, banking the smaller pieces around the larger ones, creating a structure that will hold heat, that will burn slowly and steadily through the remaining hours of the night. When the coals are arranged, she withdraws the poker and sets it back in its stand. The fire responds to her work. The flames, which had nearly disappeared, begin to return. The glow intensifies, shifts from orange to a brighter yellow at the edges, and she can feel the increase in warmth on her face, on her hands, a gentle surge like breath. The warmth moves across her cheeks, her forehead settles into the hollows around her eyes. She breathes it in, the heated air carrying the faint scent of coal smoke, and the warmth travels down her throat, into her chest, spreading through her like liquid. But the fire must be protected. She reaches for the wire guard that stands folded against the wall beside the hearth, a frame of black iron fitted with fine brass mesh, designed to contain sparks, to prevent coals from rolling out onto the rug while the room is unattended. The guard is heavy, awkward in its folded state, and she lifts it with both hands, feeling the sharp edges of the wire mesh, the coolness of the iron frame. She unfolds it carefully, the hinges resisting slightly before yielding, and she positions it before the grate, the legs settling onto the hearthstone with small metallic sounds. The mesh rises between her and the fire, partially obscuring it, turning the flames into wavering shapes seen through a veil, softening the light. The fire burns on behind the guard, steady and contained, its warmth continuing to radiate outward, filling the room with gentle heat. She lowers herself into the chair nearest the fire, the one that still holds the faint scent of tobacco, and the cushion receives her weight with a soft exhalation of air, the velvet giving beneath her. Her hands come to rest in her lap, folded loosely, one palm cradling the other, fingers curled without tension. The uniform fabric is smooth under her touch, the apron starched and crisp where it falls across her knees. The fire burns behind its guard, and the warmth reaches her. It moves across her ankles first, rising up her calves, settling into her lap where her hands rest. The heat is not insistent, not demanding. It simply exists, steady and patient, filling the space between the hearth and the chair, between the chair and the walls, seeping into corners, into the folds of the curtains, into the weave of the rug. The room glows around her. Candlelight and firelight together create a warmth of color. Amber and gold, and the deep orange of coals seen through brass mesh. The light moves constantly, flickering as candle flames waver in subtle currents. Shadows sway across the mahogany panels, across the pale expanse of ceiling, across the spines of books arranged on the shelf near the window. On the mantelpiece, the clock ticks. The sound has been there all along, unchanging, but she hears it more clearly now in the stillness of her body, in the absence of her own movement. Beyond the closed shutters, the rain continues, a faint presence at the edges of hearing. Somewhere in the house, a door closes. Footsteps follow, brief and muted, moving through the hall beyond the drawing room. They fade quickly, absorbed into the thickness of the house, and the silence returns, textured only by the clock and the rain and the soft crackle of the fire. The fire shifts. A coal settles deeper into the bed, finding a new position, and there is a small sound. The flames flicker higher for a moment, then subside again into their steady, minimal dance. The light changes on the walls, on her hands, brightening and dimming in rhythm with the fire's breath. Her palms are warm now where they rest against each other. The chill has left them completely, replaced by a gentle heat that seems to come from within. The room holds its warmth, its light, its quiet sounds. The candles burn. The fire glows. The clock measures time that passes without urgency, without destination.